All right, these are the notes for section 10.1, which is called the Law of Cosines. In this video, we'll hit the general notes, examples for both solving angles and solving sides. We'll actually do solving sides first. So we can just, kind of switch those two. I'll go through some common mistakes, and then I'll have some problems for you to try. Okay, so the general notes. First off, the law of cosines help us solve for unknowns in non-right triangles. These are sometimes called oblique triangles or just general triangles. The law of cosines really only is this first version here. But if we have a triangle that's labeled ABC, sometimes it's nice to have the law of cosines rewritten for these other angles. If you were only going to memorize one, I would just memorize that first one, and then substitute in letters as you need, or relabel the triangle as you need, but that first one's the most commonly written one. When we work with the law of cosines, when we look at the triangle, we need to make sure we have either a side angle side given to us, or side given to us, and I'll go over that a little bit more later. It's important that you're aware of how we label triangles, though. Sides are given with lowercase, angles were given with uppercase or could be Greek letters, and opposite sides and angles have the same letter. So A is opposite A, C is opposite C, B is opposite B. And even if those letters are different, you always label the side the same letter as the angle that's opposite of it. So a couple of quick notes before we get into an example of solving for a side. When you set up the law of cosines, the side you're solving for is the side that's by itself, the singleton over here, which means that the angle across from it is the one that goes in here. So that means that you need to know the angle across from the side you're looking for. You need to know, in this case, C. You also need to know these two sides. So that's the side angle side of a triangle. And so let's go through an example. So hit pause if you want to jot this down, and then press play when you're ready to work through it. 3 general steps. You want to draw your triangle if you're not given one, label it, set up your law of cosines, and then fill in the values, and then evaluate. Solving for sides is a little bit easier than solving for angles. Alright, so let's draw this triangle here. I'm just going to draw kind of a general triangle. It doesn't matter if I've drawn it anywhere near to scale. If you don't like the fact that these are C, A, and T, you are welcome to relabel them as A, B, and C, as long as you give me the relative side that I asked for, or the relative angle. But I will label them C, A, T, like in the problem. Angle A is 127.7. Side C, little c, is 15.78. And side T, little t, is 2.654. And so then we know a side angle side. So we can use the law of cosines. So what we're going to do is set up our work into the law of cosines. So let's do this with a blank canvas here. So the law of cosines, I'm solving for side A. So I want to make sure that A is the one that's by itself. We're going to have cosine of A at the end because it's opposite of side A. Then we're just going to use these other two sides, fill in the other two spots in the law of cosines. So we're going to do t squared plus c squared minus 2 times t times c times the cosine of A. So even though this isn't the one that I showed you on the first slide, the important part is I'm solving for that A. I have angle A over here, and then the other two sides fill in these two spots here and here. So now let's fill in our numbers. We still don't know a squared. We know what t is. We know what c is. It takes a little while to write it all out, but then the next step is just plugging it all into the calculator. And with a graphing calculator, you can plug it all into one line. And you'll see I'm running out of room here. That's okay. This is being multiplied. So go ahead, type that in all the way to your calculator, and then the next step will be taking the square root to get a by itself. I get a squared equal to 307.27, which means that a is going to be equal to 17.53. So one thing that I should check is that the biggest angle is across from the biggest side. So 127.7 is going to be the biggest angle. There can only be one obtuse angle in any triangle. And this is the biggest side, so that all matches out. Solving for angles, a little bit trickier because there's a very easy to make mistake with order of operations, which we'll try to avoid. The unknown angle is always across from the singleton side. So if you want to solve for angle B, you need to set it up so that B squared is by itself. You must know all three sides, which is the side, side, side kind of triangle. So let's take a look at an example. Again, pause it if you need to write it down, and then I'm going to work through it. Again, you can relabel the letters if you don't like D, O, and G. Just make sure you are still solving for the one that relates back to G. So let's label these. Side D is 3. Side O is 7. Side G is 9. And we want to know angle G. So I'm going to switch over to that blank canvas. And we're going to set up the law of cosines. So if I want to know cosine, or I want to know angle G, I need G squared by itself. Then the other two sides, D squared plus O squared minus 2 times D times O times the cosine of G. So don't forget to take the inverse cosine at the end. Now let's fill in what we already know. 9 squared equals 3 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 3 times 7 times the cosine of G. This part you can't put all into your calculator at the same time, so do this one in stages. So then I need to get this term by itself. So I'm going to subtract 9 and 49 from 81. Then divide to get rid of the negative 42. It's good that this is a decimal because that's a cosine value, so it needs to be between -1 and 1. And then I'm going to take the inverse cosine, and we're going to get 123.2 degrees is equal to G. And that's our final answer. So some common mistakes to go over here. Forgetting to take the square root and leaving it as like a squared instead of finding a, or leaving it as a decimal instead of finding the angle. If you were getting wrong answers, maybe you were in radian mode still, so you need to change your calculator over to degree mode. Sometimes people find it confusing to use sign names like DO and G, so change those back to A, B, and C if you really need to. But the common mistake that I see, it's really going to irk me if you continue to make this mistake. It's okay the first few times. People get down to this point, and then the next step that they do, so let's do the wrong way over here, is that they would get 324 is equal to 9 cosine B, because they subtract these two. So that's wrong. We don't want to do that, because you'll know that you've done the wrong thing, because when we divide both sides by 9, you're going to get 36 is equal to the cosine of B, but then that's going to give you an error, because that's too big for cosine. So the correct version of what we want to do is subtract before we divide. So you want to do 324 minus 225 and get 99. Sorry, that's kind of sloppy. And it's okay that that's negative. And then divide by 216, negative 216. And then take the inverse cosine of what you get, because now you get a decimal. And so when we take the inverse cosine of that, it does not give us an error. It tells us that the answer is 117.3. So please try to avoid that mistake. It's easy, it's going to be tempting, but hopefully, knowing the heads up, you can avoid it. Next thing that I want you to try, you can show me what you got when we meet back in class on Monday, is the problem on the back of your note sheet for you to try on your own. So try to find all of the sides and angles. If you need a hint, start by finding side B. That's the only way you know how to start right now. And if you are really, really stuck, I'll be posting a copy, it should already be up, a copy of my note sheet that I filled out, and you can check your answers on there. Don't forget to do the Khan Academy assignment. You'll be practicing a Law of Cosines. The goal is to get 5 in a row before Monday morning. If you also teach yourself Law of Sines, you can get a bonus point.